Good Friday morning, and thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet, the voice you know with the news you trust studio, sponsored by Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Dusty Sonnenberg. Under cloudy skies, we have 33 degrees on the barn thermometer. It is a cold morning out there, damp feel to the air. Not a whole lot of drying has been going on lately. Hopefully that turns around as we get into the weekend. A couple quick calendar reminders. The Ohio Safety Congress and Expo is going to be held April 16th through the 18th at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. You can attend educational sessions and visit the Expo Marketplace. Registration is free. Visit ohiosafetycongress.com to learn more. Also, this reminder that thanks to Ohio soybean farmers, GrowNextGen offers free STEM resources and links students to cutting-edge ag careers. You can discover more at grownextgen.org. Well, California's Prop 12 is making headlines once again as Republican lawmakers in the U.S. Senate introduced legislation earlier in the week that would strike down California's animal welfare law created as a result of Proposition 12, drawing support now from the nation's largest pork interest group. The Food Security and Farm Protection Act, introduced by Senators Chuck Grassley of Iowa and Joni Ernst, also of Iowa, as well as Roger Marshall from Kansas, would prevent any state or local government from passing laws that interfere with commerce and agricultural practices outside their jurisdiction. Now, Proposition 12 makes it a criminal offense and a civil violation to sell whole pork meat in California unless the pig is born to a sow that was housed within 24 square feet of space and conditions that allow the sow to turn around without touching an enclosure. Proposition 12 applies to any uncooked pork sold in the state, regardless of whether it was raised in California. Now, back in January, 23 states joined the Iowa Pork Producers Association in an appeal to the Supreme Court challenging Proposition 12. The pork industry continues to fight the law, which it says is discriminatory because it regulates pig farming practices across the country. Now, one key feature of the 4-page bill introduced this week is that it would allow ag producers to bring legal action against states like California to invalidate such regulations and seek damages for economic loss. The legislation would require courts to issue preliminary injunctions to prevent enforcement of such laws as the one created by Prop 12, and that until courts enter final judgments. The bill would also set a 10-year statute of limitations for farmers to make such claims. Now, National Pork Producers Council President Dwayne Statler from here in Ohio said that the legislation was timely for hog producers who have been struggling in a down farm economy. U.S. pork producers have just suffered the worst 18 months of financial losses in history, and many family farms are contemplating whether they can pass along their farm to the next generation, he said. We urge the Senate to take up this legislation immediately to provide us much-needed relief. The National Pork Producer Council said in a news release without the passage of the legislation, there would be widespread damaging consequences for farmers and consumers. In addition, the group said there would be, quote, significant fees forced on producers to pay for outside regulators to audit their farms due to the whims of consumers outside their state borders. National Pork Producer Council said Prop 12 continues to put farm families at risk of going out of business by significantly increasing the cost of raising pigs. California's law will also continue to increase prices at the grocery store as much as 41% for certain pork products. Well, let's take a look at your Friday weather forecast as we get ready to head into the weekend. This forecast brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com.
Drier weather in here as we move through the weekend. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that forecast update. Here in Ohio, we're still going to be dealing with plenty of cold air, unfortunately. Even though we're getting better sunshine potential for today and tomorrow, we are quite chilly as we finish out this week. Temperatures are below normal. Evaporation, yeah, it's going to happen. Drying will happen, but it's going to be slowed because of temperatures. As temperatures moderate on Sunday, we're also going to be seeing that usher in a little bit of moisture. I think that's not going to happen until Monday for the most part, but we expect a nice batch of moisture anywhere from 1/10 to 3/4 of an inch to come through most of Ohio. 75 to 80% coverage through the midday and afternoon hours Monday. It's gone by early Tuesday morning. What comes in behind it? You got it. More cold air. Very chilly for Tuesday the 15th, Wednesday the 16th. Early Thursday also is going to be chilly, but then temperatures moderate just in time for another round of moisture that comes in Friday morning to midday. Anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch of precipitation coverage, 90% of Ohio. That's going to be through Saturday morning, but we clear out and warm up for Easter Sunday and the start of the next week. That week of the 21st, though, is going to be a little bit more active. 2 threats of moisture moisture coming through. One of them could be rather significant. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
Thanks, Ryan. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more after this.
Soybeans are a game changer for Ohio's pork industry. Pigs thrive on soybeans' perfect blend of protein and energy, helping hogs nationwide devour the equivalent of 292 million bushels of soybean meal annually. Ohio is number 7 in pork production, contributing to the billions of pounds of pork enjoyed by families across the nation each year. From sizzling bacon to barbecued ribs, soybeans power the farms that feed families. Brought to you by Ohio soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Every time you use biodiesel, you're fueling more than your engine. You're investing in Ohio's farmers, reducing emissions and creating cleaner air for all of us. Did you know biodiesel adds 13% in value to every bushel of soybeans grown? That's good for farms, good for families, and good for the future. Drive with purpose. Choose biodiesel. Learn how at soyohio.org.
Taking a look at your agricultural headlines, yesterday the USDA released its WASDE report, and they cut domestic ending stocks more than pre-report estimates and boosted corn exports by 100 million bushels. Ending stocks for corn in the 24-25 crop year were lowered to 1.465 billion bushels, with 100 million more bushels of export demand. The USDA released its latest World Ag Supply and Demand Estimates report and crop production report yesterday, and the U.S. ending stocks estimates were bullish for corn and soybeans, moderately bearish for wheat. According to DTN's lead analyst, Rhett Montgomery, world ending stock estimates from USDA were slightly bullish for corn, neutral for beans, and neutral for wheat, he said. Looking more specifically at each commodity, the big changes in corn came in domestic corn in demand as production numbers and old crop carryover held pat. Corn production for the 24-25 crop was held at 14.867 billion bushels. USDA held the national yield at 179.3 bushels per acre, and harvested acres were 82.9 million. Now for demand, projected total feed and residual use is at 5.75 billion bushel. That is down 25 million bushels. And ethanol use is forecast at 5.5 billion bushels. That's the same as last month. Total domestic use forecast to be at 12.64 billion bushels, again down 25 million bushel. Corn exports are pegged at 2.55 billion bushels. That's up 100 million from March. And ending stocks for the 24-25 crop were 1.465 billion bushels, again down 75 million from March. The farm gate price for 24-25 at $4.35 a bushel. That is the same as what they projected last month. Now in soybeans, USDA lowered the ending stock for old crop 24-25 by 5 million bushels. That down to 375 million bushels. Within the range of pre-report expectations, USDA got there by making numerous small changes. Soybean production was unchanged, but imports climbed by 5 million bushels, that up to 25 million, and that raised the overall supply to 4.734 billion bushels. Crush use is 10 million bushels higher. USDA shifted 3 million bushels from seed and instead plugged it into the residual category. The result was 10 million bushels more total usage at 4.359 billion bushels and a 5 million bushel reduction to ending stocks. The national average farm gate price unchanged at $9.95 a bushel. Now in the wheat, USDA estimated an increased U.S. wheat ending stock for the 24-25 season at 846 million bushels, that from 819 back in March, and USDA cut total use by 17 million bushels, down from 1.989 million bushels a month ago. Imports were increased from 140 million to 150 million bushel in April, while the USDA trimmed exports by 15 million bushel, and the average wheat farm gate price estimated to be $5.50 a bushel, that unchanged from what it was in March. Now, if we look globally for corn, USDA also held pat on production for both Brazil and Argentina. Brazil's production was held at 126 million metric tons and exports held at 44. Argentina's production was maintained at 50 million metric tons and their exports at 36 million. Trade analysts had expected slightly lower production down in Argentina. And globally, again, the 24-25 corn beginning stocks came in at 314.33 million metric tons. That was up 0.38 million metric tons. And global ending stocks pegged at 287.65 million metric tons, down 1.29. USDA did raise global exports 2.32 million, that to 188 105.68 million metric tons. Now, globally for soybeans, USDA boosted ending stocks by 1.06 million metric tons, that to 122.47. Brazil and Argentina production was left unchanged at 169 million metric tons for Brazil, 49 for Argentina. And for the 23-24 marketing year, USDA did raise Brazil production by 1.5 million metric tons. That will now be 154.5, reflecting the review of the usage data. In the summary report, USDA noted some tariff impacts for soybean oil, noting that soybean exports for oil are forecast higher on the export sales data, but domestic use of bean oil for biofuel, that is forecast lower due to the pace of use. However, stronger use is forecast for the last part of the marketing year due to tariffs impacting imports on the other biofueled feedstocks like the used cooking oil, the report stated. And finally, globally for wheat, the 24-25 wheat ending stocks estimated at 260.7 million metric tons. That increased from 260.08 in March. In South America, USDA estimates Argentina's ending stocks at 4.44 million metric tons. That is a slight decrease from 4.5. And Brazil's ending stocks are estimated at 1.48. Australia end stocks are estimated at 3.72 million tons, and those were up 3.22 from last month. USDA estimates Russian exports at 44 million metric tons. That is a drop from 45 in March, and Ukraine's exports were pegged at 16, down from 15.5 in March. Stay tuned. We'll be back to take a look at your overnight markets after this.
Attention Ohio businesses. Join the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation for the 2025 Ohio Safety Congress and Expo, April 16th through the 18th at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. Connect with industry experts, have hands-on training sessions, explore cutting-edge safety solutions with over 300 exhibitors. Whether you're looking to reduce risks, enhance productivity, or build a stronger safety culture, the Ohio Safety Congress is for you. Register at www.ohiosafetycongress.com. It's free.
Let's take a look at what's impacting our markets. Today's market analysis is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. Phone 574-566-2113 for information on soybean marketing to LDC. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished mixed on Thursday. The WASDE report was out. It was basically a snooze fest. Let's kind of work through those numbers first, and then we'll talk tariffs again. The outside markets were all over the place. The Dow giving back some of that big move upward that we saw on Wednesday when the tariffs were paused. But first, the April WASDE report, mixed in terms of the market impact. The report lowered U.S. corn and feed and residual use by about 25 million bushels, raised exports by 100 million bushels. That was part that we were expecting, and ended up with ending stocks down to 1.465 billion bushels. We also saw a lowering of wheat exports by 15 million bushels, raising imports by 10 million. So that pushed your wheat ending stocks up to 846 million bushels. Moving into the soybeans, ending stocks fell 5 million down to 375, mostly due to a 5 million bushel rise in imports and a 10 million bushel bump in crush. The average price for wheat came in at $5.50. $4.35 on corn, beans at $9.95. All of those at price levels unchanged from the March WASDE report. The report did push the corn futures closer to resistance. Beans were up a little bit, but the wheat didn't really do a whole lot. The WASDE also raised its corn export estimate by 100 million bushels because of price analysis of U.S. export sales and ongoing competitive U.S. pricing positions. Now, as we take a look at other news, it has to go back to this whole tariff story. Once again, it was a day of the ag markets shrugging off a little bit of the uncertainty in the outside markets. Dow was down anywhere from 800 to over 1,000 points through the day. Crude oil continues to be a little bit weaker as well, but we're just not seeing this translate into major fear or concern on the grain side, at least as of right now. That may change. Tomorrow is a new day, or I guess I should say next week is a new week, but we're also seeing a little bit of uncertainty here through the day today yet. That's your market update. I'm Ryan Martin.
Thanks, Ryan. Let's take a look at how your markets closed yesterday after that USDA WASDE report came out. Today's markets brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. May corn closed up 9 cents and December corn was up 3.5. May soybeans closed up 16.25 cents, while November new crop beans were up 7.75. May Kansas City wheat closed down a dime, while May Chicago wheat was down 4.25 cents, and May Minneapolis wheat was down 6.75. $2. Now in the overnight trade, December new crop corn is down 1 3/4 at $4.52 November new crop beans up 2 1/4 cents at $10.07, and wheat for July down 1/4 penny at $5.53 1/4 cents. This is the Ohio AgNet.